Hello and welcome back to the SuperCoach Gun Show. I'm your host Nathan from SuperCoach Guns, and with me today, I've got SuperCoach Playbook contributor Max Bryden. Max, how you going today, mate?
G'day, Nathan. Yeah, going well, mate. Really excited for this BBL season to end. I feel like it's always an incredible grind on the mind and also the body, given up how late we have to stay up for these rounds to close. But yeah, doing pretty well, mate. So excited to be on the show.
No, yep, looking forward to it. Those 7:40 starts are a bit of a killer because you get to that 6:30 slot and you're thinking, oh, the teams are out, and then nah, you got to wait another half an hour, and then you feel the pinch at 11 o'clock at night when the game's just finished. It's a punish. But um, let's get into the round that was. So, to start the round, we had the Sixers and the Stars. Now, Maxi, he top scored again for the Stars. I think he's their leading wicket taker and their leading run scorer this year. He's having an insane season. Uh, I don't know about you, but because of when he plays, are you thinking of captaining him this round and going like Matt Short vice captain or something like that?
He's definitely an option. I think the way that I'm going to try and play this round with so many teams on the singles is just be as flexible as possible based on not only when the games are, but also what the toss is. A really big learning for me this season has just been focusing on death bowlers, but death bowlers in the first innings as opposed to the second innings when batsmen are more likely to just swing for the fences in that 20th over. I know as a David Payne owner earlier in the season, he's picked up, I think, almost 80% of his wickets in the 20th over of the first innings and things like that. So I'm even looking tonight at potentially even like a Jamie Overton VC over Matt Short if Overton gets to bowl, if the strikers are bowling first. So that's the kind of flexibility I want to take into this round.
Yeah, fair enough. And I, yeah, it feels right to have the VC of Matt Short and captain and Glenn Maxwell, just because they're both, the main contributors for their team. And
Mhm.
I think I looked at a stat yesterday. Maxwell scored something like 20% of the Stars' total points this season, which I
Yeah,
find absolutely absurd.
it is
Um,
absurd, and I think the
yeah,
craziest part about it is he's hasn't really had a breakout performance with the bat yet either. Like I think his top score is probably only really in the 30s, and that might have been that game against Hobart that was rain affected. So he hasn't raised the bat. I know that for certain. And when he does, you got to think that it's going to happen just based on the law of probability in the next couple of games, and he could be set for a really big one. And you'd love to be on him when that happens.
yeah, that's right. And I don't reckon there's a bigger opportunity for him to do that against the Melbourne Renegades at Marvel. But hey, who knows? Um, Now I had in here that whether or not to who would you go between Tom Curran or Jack Edwards, but of course we found out probably 15 minutes before we started recording that Tom Curran's out for the remainder of the season with a knee injury. Now, does that obviously boosts Jack Edwards' stocks? Does it favour anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge change. And I think the good thing is for Jack Edwards, we've already seen a bit of a flavour as what happens when Curran's not in the team, given he missed those 4 games earlier. First and foremost, he'll bat one spot higher, Jack Edwards, at number 6, which is really good, face a handful more deliveries. And he's shown this season that he's capable of getting to 20 runs, which he's done a handful of times when he's batting at 6. But more than that, he's bowled at big overs. The Sixers are sort of blessed with so many fast bowlers who can bowl the surge. Not only Curran when he's been available, but they've really rotated it between Sean Abbott, Ben Dorcius, Jackson Bird, and even Jack Edwards himself. I mean, he bowled the surge against the Adelaide Strikers and got out Matt Short in what was a match-winning bowling performance from him. He's bowled death. He's bowled power play as well. And with the Curran out, I think he's a big chance to step into that role. So I really like it. I think the one thing that the Sixers have done a lot this season is really sort of kept you guessing what their lineup is going to be. Like I feel really bad for a guy like Jackson Bird, who I think was arguably, well, not arguably, I think he was their leading wicket taker before he was either dropped and or sort of rested with rumours of a bit of a niggle. But he's been fantastic when he's bowled the surge. The other guy who we haven't seen all season but could quickly come into calculations would be Hayden Kerr. Hayden Kerr, he's been a really solid option in other seasons, has that sort of variety as a left-hander. That's something a little bit different. And I think if he does get into the team, which is a big probability, he'll bat 7 as well. So that one spot above another guy we haven't mentioned yet in Sean Abbott. So, mate, it's the beautiful thing about these single game weeks is that there's so many options on the table and you don't have to be strict in playing the doubles. So, man, I can't wait to see what coaches do. And you've got to think that this sort of Sixers and Thunder game now could be a real sort of turning point in whoever sort of makes it out at the end of this BBL season with the title.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that there's a lot of as you say, a lot of different avenues that coaches can take. And in that Sixers lineup particularly, like you've got Steve Smith coming back for like
Mm-hmm.
one game only. There's some coaches that will bring him in. They will bring him in. They'll put a captain on him if they have to. You know, even though he's 270k, they'll be like, you know what? No one else is gonna. Not many people are gonna do this. I'll do it.
That's it. And you couldn't really
Yeah.
talk people out of it, could you? I mean, I think that the one thing that I would just say is that I'd really prefer him if he was batting first. You know, if you're going to take a punt on Steve Smith, either just bring him into your team or going to skipper him, then that second innings is going to be tough because for there's definitely a possibility you could see Thunder bat first, Sixers could bowl them out cheaply, and he might only be chasing sort of 120, 140, so he might not have the time in the game to hit that big century that you'd be chasing.
That's right. And I think if the Sixers bat first, you lock it in. If you're half keen on the move, you do it because if they bat first, he's got nothing stopping him from scoring a ton.
Agree.
Now I've got here that look, Abbott's not really hasn't had his usual big wicket taking season that we usually recognise him with, and I think as a result, he's around high 150s in price, or well, in the 150s in his price. Do you think he a sneaky buy low option? Do you reckon does he benefit from Tom Curran not there? Will he bowl more of the death overs? What do you think?
I see a lot of similarities between Sean Abbott this round and Michael Nisa last. A lot of people weren't aware that Sean Abbott entered the season with a little bit of a side strain. And so he hasn't probably physically been at his absolute peak yet this season. But the Sixers have had as long a rest between their last couple of games as anyone. They played the first game of this last round, and now they're playing on Friday night at a sold-out SCG. Yes, he's a huge possibility to come in and bowl the death overs, to bowl the surge. You think that's almost a foregone conclusion with Curran out of the picture. And at him, hopefully nearing his peak fitness, I think it's a really, really good shout. The only thing that really counts against him is the fact that he's sort of bowl only. But really, this time of year, with people most likely loaded up on DPP players that they've collected throughout the season, he's a huge, huge rest, and certainly a guy that I'm looking at this round.
Yeah, I quite like the Abbott shout. I think they're playing at the SCG, so it's home ground as well. But that's another thing
Mm-hmm.
in his favour. The Thunder haven't been great this season. They've lost a lot of wickets whenever when they bat in general. So if he's bowling first,
Good shout.
there's a
Yeah.
strong case for a two for or a three
Yeah.
for him.
The only things that I think count against it are probably twofold. One, that the Thunder are playing an extra batter this round, and we're hearing that David Warner's been cleared for landing on the SCG in his chopper on Friday afternoon. So that really does give them a lot more balance than they've had at any point so far this season. I think the SCG pitch should probably be as good as it was in round one, just given we haven't seen as much rain in Sydney in the lead up to Friday as we have in some of the previous rounds where the pitch has been really sort of up and down. And then the only other factor that I'm taking into consideration with any of these guys to bring in this round is the fact that you're going to have to play them for 2 rounds, right? We don't have enough trades and time. Like whoever you bring in round 8 is almost guaranteed to be in your team in round 9, given that our trades are going to be heavily favoured towards Sydney Thunder in that round. And they've got a difficult away trip to Perth to finish the season, where the Scorchers have played that ground really, really well. They've limited the amount of wickets that they've lost, particularly when they've been chasing teams. Guys like Aaron Hardy just were really steady hands in chasing. And as you know, the Scorchers don't give up many Supercoach points. So that would be the only thing sort of counting against Sean Abbott if you want to look at the negatives.
Yeah, and Yeah, no, that's right. I don't think there's much more to add to that. We'll look at the Heat and the Hurricanes. So that's game two here, and well, Nikhil Chowdhury, he almost got them home with the bat. I think he got like what 55 or something with the bat, and
Yep.
got a wicket. 102 points in the first game. Gee, he's gone from enough to what probably one of the best cash cows this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we haven't really sort of seen Akashi sort of have this kind of breakout performance since Matt Short about 2 seasons ago. The only thing that's really sort of stressing me out about the Hurricanes is the fact that despite the fact they keep losing, they're not doing anything. Like they're not sort of making changes in their team. They're not really dropping blokes. Um, they're going to be forced into a change this round because Riley Meredith picked up a side strain that we'd expect to keep him out. So you think Big Billy Stanlake gets the start there. But yeah, look, the way that he's playing, it wouldn't shock anyone if Chowdhury bowled his four, which he did the last time he played in Hobart, and batted as high as number five, given the struggles that we've seen from Sam Hain and Corey Anderson above him. Could you trade him in this round? I think that you definitely could. Would he be in the top three targets this week? That's maybe a little bit more questionable, given that he's not going to have much support from his bowlers around him to sort of build that pressure that will force them to attack against him, which, it's a big loss for them in Riley Meredith.
Yeah, it is because although he hadn't been taking as many wickets as he probably liked, he was very economical. Like he was beating the bat a fair bit. I quite liked watching him. And
Mm,
yeah, he built up a lot of pressure, particularly for Paddy Dooley and Chowdhury to capitalise on.
agreed.
Chris Jordan. Now he's gone from the Hurricanes went from barely buying a wicket, uh, leading into this round to having taking a bunch of them. Like Chris Jordan took like I don't know 5 or 6 wickets in the round, and he got to 170. It was. Did you own him?
I didn't, and I was very vocal in warning people off him, which I feel awful about now in hindsight. But I think you look at him, and it's classic BBL Supercoach. He's a calculated risk. He's a guy with a fantastic role, and the stats will tell you one story. That will tell you that he took 3 wickets in his first 6 games, and I think just in that double, he's taken four in 2 games, which sort of bucks the trend. But he's a great calculated risk, and I know that very smart super coaches they flock to him in that double. They flock to guys like Ashton Agar, and some of the really smart guys flock to Michael Nisa, just knowing that unlike myself, who brought in Caleb Jewell for his like 11 points in across 2 games, it was a risk worth taking. But again, could you advocate for bringing him in now? Maybe you could if the Hurricanes get the opportunity to again bowl first. But personally, I'll be looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you do need to look elsewhere. Like you've got your big score from him. The
Mhm.
Hurricanes, pretty much they're one loss away from being completely out of it, and then that last game, you know, who knows what they dish up? They'll have no motivation, that's for sure. Um, so you don't want to be buying into players from teams that could be out of the running because there's
Mm.
just that they don't often perform as well in general. Um, Nathan McSweeney. Now, he was a semi-popular trade-in. He burnt those who traded him in. He got 9 in the first game and then got dropped for Kawaja and Renshaw. Um, I honestly thought it'd be Renshaw that got dropped because he's had a
Mm.
shocker of a big batch season, but they went McSweeney. I'm a bit surprised.
Yeah, no, that shocked me too, particularly after the revelation of Renshaw's inclusion within the Test squad. I would have thought they would have been getting as many games as possible into McSweeney, given that they're going to need him if they want to win the final this year and go one better. But having said that, I don't want to look at any bat only guys at this time of the year. I think it's too risky, particularly on a single game week. Yes, you might strike it lucky, but there's going to be bulk changes in this Heat team. Colin Munro was injured, didn't take the field last game. I think that given that they've locked in that home final on the Gold Coast, this is a perfect opportunity for the Brisbane Heat to get a game into the batters that are going to have to lift them to that title. So Munro, if he doesn't play, we could see Jack Wood finally debut at the top of the order. If not, we could see Max Bryant come into the team as well. And Renshaw's going to be unavailable with that test squad. So McSweeney would parachute straight back into him. They've also got to drop Usman and Marnus out of that lineup. So Josh Brown comes in. There's probably one more spot that they're potentially looking to shore up. Does Jimmy Pearson finally get that game? Because Billings will also be unavailable for the final with his ILT 20 commitment. So bulk changes. They've got a difficult away trip this week to Perth. I don't really think I could advocate for buying any Brisbane Heat. Michael Neese potentially the exception just because of how good he looked last night. But aside from that, I'm not looking at the Brisbane Heat this week.
Yeah, I think they've sort of had their relevancy in Supercoach.
Mm.
You know, they play once and then they've got the bye to finish the season. It sort of feels like that's them done. You know,
Yes.
yeah, I agree. I don't think you need to trade in any Brisbane Heat players. Now the third game, Sydney Thunder took on the Perth Scorchers at Showground. Ashton Agar, he finally had a decent performance with the ball. Obviously, the back-to-back champ had him. Of course, he did, right? Uh, oh, gee, were you on him?
No, I was not. And again, Agar burnt me very badly last season. And I think that I was very happy to go against him. But again, like just to go back to that point around some of the other all rounders, he's a calculated risk given he's a bowler that you can slot into your batter spot. I don't think anyone expected the Showgrounds pitch to do what it did and make young Cooper Connolly look like Rengana Harath against the Sydney Thunder. But I will tell you that there's a certain West Indian finger spinner who gets to bowl there in round 9, who could be a really good super pod in has seen the dream. Um, but again, could you bring in Agar? Look, it was really good to see him bowling well because he did enter the season under a bit of an injury cloud, and I do truly believe that he's an international caliber cricketer who often has to play a defensive role for the Perth Scorchers and therefore doesn't get the wickets. So it was good to see him do well. I didn't own, was happy to go against him, but yeah, wouldn't bring him in. The only guy I think that might be interesting from a Perth Scorchers perspective that not many people would think about at the moment would be Jason Berendorf. And the reason being that he's bowling the big overs this year for the Perth Scorchers. In the past, he's bowled 3 up front, sometimes hasn't even completed his spell. But this year, he's bowling surge and he's taking wickets because of it. He gets to get 2 games for the remainder of this season back at Optus Stadium where he bowls well. He's got his tail up. He's really passing the eye test. And I think that people will probably be looking for either the sell or they won't be looking at the Scorchers just given the back-to-back doubles and probably a little bit of resentment towards how poorly they've scored in those games. But he's a really sneaky one if for coaches who can afford him.
Yeah, I think so because yeah, Ty's been okay this season. Jai has not been very good at all, and no, Lance Morris has been good, but Berendorf does seem to be the leading bowler in that lineup, and
Mm.
whilst they're rotating through some of their paces to give them a rest or yeah, whatever other reason, um, Berendorf he's had his rest as well. That's another thing. So
Exactly right.
you're going to get the 2 games that remaining out of him for sure. You don't have to worry about a rest with him.
Yeah.
Um, Also, as you say, relatively big pod. People will sell him this round just because
Mm-hmm.
of his price. I don't know if I would though if I owned him.
No, I think if you own, you hold, unless he's
Yeah,
like your path to maybe Dan Sams, who I think it's a really contentious point this week if you go early or not. But certainly, like Dorf, I think would be a fantastic hold if you do own.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Cooper Connolly. I I had a
Was
decision.
he on your bench?
He was on my yes, he was on my bench. I had a decision half an hour before the game started, and it was I put it in the Podmasters chat. Do I go with Cooper Connolly, Sam Whiteman? Now I think it was who was it? It might have been Damon Jackman and Supercoach with DR. They both said do a coin toss. I did a coin
Yeah.
toss. It landed on Sam Whiteman, and Cooper Connolly went to the bench. I was like, I'm pretty happy with that. Whiteman's an opener. Connolly bats 6, doesn't really bowl. Sure enough, what does Cooper Connolly do? As you say, bowls like Prime Rengana Harath and gets 3 for 20 odd, 110 points, and I'm just rocking in the corner. Absolutely killed those who benched him. The only way I could take solace is that that was most of the comp that did bench him. Did you bench him?
I did bench him. I didn't play him last double
Yeah,
either. I looped him last double and I didn't take his 20, I think it was, after the first game in round six. But no, look, I think I took a bit of a different approach this week. I wasn't as keen on the doubles. I was keen to sort of solidify my team for this round and try and find as many all rounders as possible. So I only had 8, it was, on the double, and I played Matt Short, Glenn Maxwell, and Jamie Overton all on field. So I think in these sort of situations, you've just got to look at the cash rise and sort of take that with a bit of a smile. But yeah, no, it's certainly hurt. But I mean, if anyone in the world would have predicted him bowling the 18th and 20th overs of that game, they would have had rocks in their head.
yeah, mate. That was, I don't know what the hell had happened there. I thought, oh, okay, he's got a wicket, no worries. He bowled a couple of overs, then they bowled him for the 18th, the 20th, and I was like, oh, you're kidding. Oh, jeez. And then I think we got halfway through the final over. It was still only on one for, and then he gets back-to-back stumpings, and
Yeah.
I was just like, ah, well, that does it. Turning
It's
off
you
the
see it
TV.
coming, and I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like that's why I think it's so important to think about who's bowling first, and even like how you think games are going to go. So, for example, I was sitting there last night with the skipper on Paul Walter. I was versing a lot of people who had Xavier Bartlett as their skipper, heading into that 20th over. And with how far away the Perth Scorchers were from the Brisbane Heat, I was just sitting there watching with my hands over my eyes, going like, "He's going to get a hat trick. He's going to get a hat trick." And geez, he almost did. Big Berendorf did well to dig one out. But these things happen, and I think that's it's just a fantastic reminder of the principles of BBL Supercoach and why death bowlers are so expensive and so highly valued in this game.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Now, I guess this one's more about the Sydney Thunder, but is there a if you're looking at it right now, is there anything more than Daniel Sams from the Sydney Thunder that you'd be looking to buy for next round?
I mean, I think you have to. I think you have to definitely in round 9 get as many as you can in, and I think the I want at least 5. I had thought that I would have even more than that, potentially as many as 8, if I used as many trades as possible over these next 2 rounds to just load up and load up. But um, there's not a huge amount that really sort of interests me, and I think that like the one thing that I keep reminding myself when I sort of go, oh, what about Hales? What about Warner? What about Tom Collar Cadmore? Like get a piece of that top order is the fact that they play the second game of that double game week down at Showgrounds, where like they could be all out for 15 again. You just don't know. But having said that, someone from that team is going to go, well, we've just come through a round where all 3 teams on the double scored exceptionally well. The Canes, the Canes bowlers, most of them all got over 120, or all of the popular options did. The Heat have as well. It was really only the Perth Scorchers who sort of stuffed us around with some pretty average scores across the board. But someone from this Thunder team will go, well, it does sound like probably Hales is the only guy who's shown form so far consistently with the bat. Ollie Davies is sort of batting too low. So you could grab a couple. I think for me, what I would love to do this round is get Dan Sams. As much as I would love to sort of sit there and make sure that he's going to be bowling in that first innings against the Sydney Sixers, he's probably just worth taking a punt because his role is so good, batting 7 and bowling death. And if I can stash one on the bench, if I can stash a guy like Tom Collar Cadmore on the bench, potentially even use him as a wicketkeeper loop, if Ben McDermott fails for me this evening, then that's also not a bad strategy. But geez, they're hard to pick. Who have you got your eyes on?
Um, yeah, so I've gone a bit generic. I've gone currently. I'll be trading in David Warner this round.
Mhm.
You think he almost has to score runs if he's flying in on a helicopter for his first game. He
Yeah,
almost has to because the
just
amount
for the
of
carbon footprint alone.
yeah, and the memes that he would be subjected to if he flew on a helicopter just to score like 5 runs with the bat, like he'd be
Yeah.
persecuted online.
Yeah.
So
Well, he has done
I
it before, though. I mean,
yeah,
the helicopter withstanding. If you cast your mind back to BBL 02, I think it was, or maybe a BBL 03, he played one season with the Sydney Sixers, and he played in one game of that season before his test duty sort of overtook that. He played at the SCG against the Hobart Hurricanes, and he got a golden duck. So he has sort of form as this blow-in player who sort of hasn't necessarily blown people away, but I mean, it's David Warner. He is a world-class T20 opener. So you've got to think if throwing a dart at the Sydney Thunder lineup, um, he's as good a chance as anyone to score well.
that's sort of what I was thinking. I was just like, come on, it's David Warner, right? Like,
Mm.
I get he had a not a great Big Bash last year for these little stint there, but he's got no Test cricket anymore. Surely his mind's now purely on the Big Bash. It's not really on international cricket at all. Surely there's an innings or two from him in the
Yeah,
last three games of the regular season.
you'd have to think. And look,
Yeah,
first game of the round as well. Next round for them is at Manuka Oval against the Adelaide Strikers, who aren't the best bowling unit.
yeah,
They're decent, so that's another sort of tick in the chase of Thunder batter. But for now, like I personally just want to leave that as late as possible because I really just want to get as many all rounders as I can into my setup for round 8.
yeah. Fair enough. We'll move to game number 4: the Hurricanes and the Strikers. Ben McDermott. Now he was around 30
Mm.
off 30, and then he finished the innings at around 96 off 60. Um, he had quite a very Ben McDermott like innings, consolidate early and then through those middle and late overs, just whack him out of the park. He's so good to watch when he's on song.
Yeah, no, he's a beaut, and I'm really glad that I own. The path I got there was a bit sort of backward in the sense that I traded out Sam Harper via a boost in round 6, I think it was, to stash him on my bench for this double game week, and then I used one of my trades last week to get Sam Harper back as a wicketkeeper loop. But look, he's a fantastic batter. I do like the matchup for him this week. Not only a wicketkeeper loop, but for the bold, I think he'd be a really pod VC option as well. Opening the batting, if he gets the opportunity to do that in the first innings as well, that'd be certainly a way to differentiate yourself from the crowd with a lot of guys going towards Matt Short. But look, fantastic option, looks in good form. I think the interesting thing for the Hobart Hurricanes is, are we going to see Matt Wade again? Um, what's really unlocked McDermott, for me at least in this double, has been opening the batting again. He had that good innings at number 4, which sort of saw him get his eye in a couple of weeks ago. But now opening the batting and wearing the gloves, that's what you want from a guy in your wicketkeeper spot with that opportunity to get sort of more fielding points and that sort of stuff. So he's a great option. And if you don't own, he's probably one of the few non-bowlers that I'd look at this week, just based on your ability to use him as a loop.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that Matthew Wade. Well, if Matthew Wade was to come back, I'm hoping that it's at the expense of someone like Jewel or Mac Wright. So at least he's batting in the top 3. I can stomach him batting at number 3. In all honesty, um,
Yep.
but no, it'd be great if he kept the gloves. I don't think it's a deal breaker him not having them though. I think if he's just playing as a bat only,
Mm.
it's okay. Yeah, you probably get 10 points less, but it's not the end of the world in the
Yeah,
end.
agree.
Um, Now Jamie Overton, uh, I was a fool and sold him after his double, and he went out and scored 125. Um, I guess. Well, I mean, I don't. We don't have to, but it'd be probably the right thing to do to go get him back, most likely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Look, I think that he's definitely in the conversation for the top 3 best roles in all of Supercoach. And he's been so impressive with his bowling above everything else. He's taken a bag of wickets. He's bowling the big overs. Gets to bat at number 6 again this game as well. I was lucky in the sense that I got to sell Chris Lynn last week, who I'd made some nice money off after owning him for about 3 rounds. Um, and got to keep him. I want him for the rest of the season. I think the Adelaide Strikers have had a really sneaky good draw to end this season. It was something that I looked at after the double and sort of thought they've got Hobart back to back and thought that I can't sell. And I'm so glad that I was vindicated for that decision. And for me, I think that I'm quite boyish that he's going to be my VC. If the Adelaide Strikers get to bowl first against Hobart, I think that most people will go to shorts. That's just the way that I can differentiate myself. He's taking catches, he's taking wickets, he gets a bat at six. It's a fantastic role.
It is a fantastic role, and he's bowling at the right stages as well. So, like, he bowled one in the last 4 overs. He
Mm.
bowl more often than not. Oh, maybe not nowadays with Henry Thornton there. He was bowling some surge overs.
Yeah,
But
surge, death, power play
yeah,
up front. Like it's really the party overs where he's either nailing his Yorkers, he's swinging the ball past the edge, or people are trying to whack him out of the park and they're skying catches. So
yeah,
he's the complete package, and I think that he's taking a lot of catches as well. It's probably the best thing about getting Lloyd Pope into the game is that you got to hide Pope in the field. So Overton has to be in the hot spots where his hands are ready, and he's as good a catcher as anyone.
yeah. No, he is the complete all rounder because he's taking one or two catches a game. He's bowling his 4 overs at the key points as well, and then, as you say, he's finishing an innings with the bat. Um, Sam Hain. Now, I think it was maybe 3 innings ago he scored a 50
Mm.
against the Melbourne Renegades, and I was thinking there's a bit of Laurie Evans about this bloke. He's 75k. He's batting in their middle order. All it takes is one innings on this double, and he's got you've got a lot of value for money. Well, evidently he didn't score a run on the double. He got zero in both games. Lost. I don't think he lost money because he had a negative break even, but barely made any money. Um, it was Sam Hain versus Ben McDermott for me, and I'm glad I went Ben McDermott because that I would have been in a world of pain, a world of pain.
Yeah, and look, I think that he is a great epitome of why chasing bowlers is the name of the game in Supercoach BBL, because you can get weeks like this even for guys with more talent than Sam Hain. But I think the issue for him is that he's had a little bit of an injury. I know he was a risk to miss. If it wasn't the double, it was a game recently, just based on a calf that he did, but they've got to make changes to Hobart Hurricanes. They can't keep picking this same team with him and Corey Anderson stinking it up in the middle overs when they've got guys like Sam Heaslett, who they've brought down from the Brisbane Heat, who they've just got to see what he's made of. If Matt Wade comes into the team, which fingers crossed he does, just because he's a fantastic guy to watch play cricket, then he is really in the firing line, Sam Hain, to keep his job for mine. Just given that we've seen some pretty good performances across the tournament so far from McDermott. He's not going to get dropped. Mac Wright's been fantastic. He's not going to get dropped. Caleb Jewell, they've put a lot of time into, and he has had a couple of decent innings so far this tournament. So I really think Hain could be in the firing line.
Yeah, probably does get dropped in reality because there's an extra bit of expectation on you when you're an international player, and then when you don't fire, well, you get the punishment harder than any of the domestic players do. So yeah, I don't think he'll play this next game, and yeah, glad I didn't back the gut in on that one. Game 5, final game of the round, we had the Perth Scorchers and the Brisbane Heat. Battle of the two top teams in the competition. Um, Nisa went absolutely nuts last night. 60 runs and 2 wickets. And one hell of. I think he had 2 catches. One of them was an absolute screamer. I think that might have been off Spencer Johnson. Um,
Mm.
it was a. He did really well that game. He saved them probably single handedly.
Yeah, no, he was amazing, and I think that that's where I see the comparisons, as I mentioned earlier, to Sean Abbott. That I think the injury that made him miss the Cricket Australia 11 game against Pakistan, that was just prior to the first round of BBL. It's I don't want to say it's been more serious than sort of what we might have thought, but I think he's sort of been quite hindered by it. But look, it wouldn't shock anyone to hear that the champ, Andrew Langley, did bring him in last round, and he did have the VC on him. Unfortunately for Langley, he didn't loop. after that first game score. I think that was maybe 55 or 56, which I don't want to tell you what his rank would have been, but he'd have the coaches in front of him, which would only be ones you can count on your hands, shaking in his boots. But great return to form, looked good with the bat, and probably the only Brisbane Heat guy that you could potentially trade in this week. But yeah, just a good reminder of what he's capable of for sure.
Yeah, and it's good to see him back performing. Not only in the Big Bash, but just for Supercoach as well, because he'd been bowling 2 overs a game and batting at
Mm,
8 for a lot of this season, and we all thought it was like that's a waste. You're better off resting on the sidelines for a couple of games than you are doing this. But he stuck it out, and
mm.
he's finally put. It looks like he's close to full fitness. The fact that he's diving around, he's bowling his 4 overs, and he's got the stamina to swing for 30, 40 balls. Um,
Yeah, and look, I think the thing to note with him was the comments from the coach prior to last night's game that the reason he sort of finally bowled his 3 overs in the first game of the double against Hobart was the conditions. They really suited him, right? He didn't mention fitness, but there's no doubt in my mind that sort of played a part. But I think then if you consider conditions and what sort of really favours Nisa, it's when the ball's swinging. That's his bread and butter, rather than traditional T20 bowling using the pitch and all sort of bowling, Yorkers and off pace stuff. Like he can do a little bit of that, but it's not absolutely his best game. The one thing you got to keep in mind is that this game that they've got against Perth on Saturday, I believe it is, it's a 1 o'clock Perth start time, right? Sun's going to be up, the lights are going to be on, and Perth, I don't think he's ever even heard the name humidity in the air. So, is it necessarily going to suit him? I don't think it will anywhere near like the Gabba has this round, and that would be just something in the back of my mind for anyone considering bringing him in this week.
yeah, it feels more of a. I'll throw a name out there. It feels more like a Spencer Johnson sort of wicket, or Paul Walter.
Yeah.
A bit of bounce in it might hop. It's big ground as well. That's
Hmm.
also that always favours death bowlers as well. And when they've got Bartlett, who's bowling a bit of death, they've got obviously Spencer Johnson, who's their best death bowler, and Paul Walter, who's been doing really well there as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, Nisa's not going to bowl much in the last 4 overs, I don't think.
Agree.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Spencer Johnson, he returned to form. He had a bit of a lean Big Bash so far, but he bounced back with 145, 147, I think was the actual number. Took 4 wickets across the double, a couple of sixties in each game. Performed really well. He's fine. I reckon he got a bit spooked by his price tag at the IPL and had a couple of lean games personally.
Yeah, I think the issue with Spencer Johnson, and I thought about this a lot in preseason, was that he bowls so quick and he's bowling across players that they actually, it's hard to take wickets when the batters can't hit the ball.
Yeah,
It's just going into the keeper's gloves time after time, and the umpire's usually got a decision to make: is it a wide or not? And that's sort of really it. He's almost too good for his own good. Um, but it was a great return to form. Another guy coming off a preseason injury who's probably just hitting that sort of peak fitness as well. Um, and Ian, for anyone who's got him as well, I think a great hold because beyond just the form that he's shown and that sort of return to fitness, you can use him as a loop next week in your bowling slot as well. So really, really good to see because I think that he's got a potentially big future for Australia. So nice to see him return to form.
yeah, that's right. And he's an exciting prospect, particularly in the shorter formats. If he can come along in the next couple of years in the longer format, uh, he's primed for a Stark replacement because we don't. There's not too many left arm quicks screaming out "pick me" to replace him
Yep,
in the Test side.
good shout.
Um, yeah. Speaking of future Test quicks, Jai Richardson, hopelessly out of form. Like he's bowling much shorter than what he should be. He's probably lost five k's of his normal pace. I don't know what's going on with him, honestly.
Yeah, he looks tired. And he just looks sort of in bad nick. I was shocked last night when Ty got a rest ahead of him, and Anand Voges did seem want to claim that it was based on conditions, but that sounded strange to me. But yeah, look, he got absolutely smashed all over the park, and he's probably now a prime rest candidate for their next match. And if he doesn't, then look, I don't know. But I guess the question is for owners, and I know that there are a lot out there, given they've had the double double, is do you sell? I'm in the camp of yes, just because from a pure eye test perspective, he's looked awful, and I don't really want to play him or see that there's much value in playing. But there's always sort of that part in the back of your head that says he's got the pedigree. So it could be worth sort of staying on if most are going elsewhere. But the way that my team's set up, it's either sell him now or maybe never. So I'm moving him on at this stage, but I'm not 100% confident in that decision. What are you doing?
Um, yeah, I'm holding him right now. Admittedly, I did my trades at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, are they? Could my team be a complete disaster? I haven't actually looked at my team yet this morning, so I don't know if the trades actually work out that what I've done. But just looking at it now, yeah, okay, that works. Yeah, I think I'm holding. I don't want to hold. In fact, probably throughout the day, I'll try and find a way to sell him. In all honesty, I'll try and find a way to get what I want without having to hold Jai Richardson there, because he's not.
Nice.
He's averaging in the 30s. Like he's really not performing at all. I purely think about next year when he's going to be priced at around a 35 average. That 70% of Supercoach will own him if he's shown any sign of returning to form. That's all I've been
Agree.
thinking about with him. Um, well, that'll do us on the round 7 review. We'll have a look at our top 5 trade targets for this round. Max, who's your top 5?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that it's really important for coaches to just consider their flexibility this week, because I've probably got about 8 names at the top of my mind. And I really only want to make sort of moves on them based on the results of the toss, and potentially a few sort of team listings. I think the number one guy, if you don't own him, is Jamie Overton. His role is just delicious. He'll cost you a lot of money. And he's playing against Hobart, which I don't mind at all. And then they finished the season playing against the Sydney Thunder, who, again, are a team on a bit of struggle street at the moment. Marnica's a good place to sort of score Supercoach points, either with a bat or with the ball. So I think he's the number one option for me. Number two, I did have Tom Curran, but going to have to sort of reassess that. Number two, I'll say, is Dan Sams. I think it doesn't matter sort of getting ahead of the double. You could, I think he will be probably the most popular trade in this week, just based on the double in round 9, and a lot of people wanting to get in as many all rounders as they can. You could go against that and wait another week, but I think if you can afford it, then why not? Just jump on board. He'll help you out in a single game week with his opportunity to have multiple scoring involvements, batting and bowling and fielding. Number three, doing this on the fly now with that current, so I think I'm going to say Jack Edwards. He will now return to a very delicious role for the Sydney Sixers, batting at number 6 and bowling some really big party overs. So I like that, and I think that a lot of people would have sold either last week or maybe even looking to sell this week, but I think he's a trade in, and that really excites me. And number 4, number 5, you can sort of throw a blanket over these guys, but just some other names that I don't mind. The first one would be Akil Hussain. He's got 2 absolutely rip-snorting matchups to finish this season. He plays the Melbourne Stars at Marvel Stadium, which has been traditionally quite good for spinners. And then he gets to go to Sydney Showgrounds and show what he can do against the Sydney Thunder lineup on that absolutely torrid deck. So he will cost you about $209,000, but I think he's a fantastic super pod. There were 5 owners in the top 10% prior to this round, some smart coaches who were using him as a loop, no doubt. But I think he's a really amazing one. And some other names I like. Don't mind Will Sutherland. He's going back to that role that he had last year, where he might not bowl his 4 overs, but he'll probably be batting as high as number 6, which is where he actually thrived in Supercoach, because I think his bowling's still a bit so-so. And then for throw at the stumps, Bo Webster, Dan Lawrence, some Melbourne Stars who could bowl a few overs and have got a couple of decent games to finish the season. So that's my list. What's
Yeah,
yours,
okay.
Nathan?
So I've got straight out of the bat. I've got Jamie Overton at number 1. As we've talked about numerous times, uh, his role is top 5 in Supercoach. He's bowling well, really well, actually. He's taking uh, bulk wickets. He's scoring runs at a high strike rate. So if he gets past 20, you've got at least 40 points from his batting more often than not. And yeah, he's in proper form. Number two, I've got I've actually gone Steve Smith at number two. I think
Wow.
there's a really big chance the Thunder have not bowled well. I think there's a really big chance he goes out, and if he's batting first, I think he cracks it. I think he goes. I think he goes out and scores, well above 70 runs. I don't know what his actual score he'll finish on, but like I don't know. It's a gut feel for me at that one. Number three, I've got Jack Edwards. In that role, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I'm sure his average is well above his season average
Mm.
when he's been playing without Tom Curran because they seem to negatively impact each other, really, at the end of it. But no, I think for sure Jack Edwards is in my top three. I'd also have, as a pod, Akil Hussain. I think very few are going him. He's playing at Marvel. Is it Marvel? I think he's playing at Marvel. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Marvel versus Stars this week, and then Showgrounds against the Thunder.
yeah, like the Stars lineup has been very volatile outside of Maxi, so I do think there's an opportunity there for Keeler saying to get 2 or 3 wickets in this game, and well, currently very very few people own him, and he's a
Mm.
massive pod. And then I guess we're at number five after that, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure who my number five would be, but I tell you, I'm kind of interested in like a Michael Nisa, because although there's some of the things with the conditions, particularly playing at Perth in the middle of the day, just about that goes against him for sure. I do think that uh, he's a good enough quality player, and their openers have been a little bit suspect this season, Perth. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be there's something there with the new ball for Michael Lisa. If there's just a little bit of something in the wicket, he could pick up a couple early, and yeah, he's batting really well. Of course, that's a given. So any opportunity, he'll do well with the bat.
Yeah, nice. No, I think that's a really, really good list. And then the only other guys I think I'd just give a quick shout out to would just be Berendorf. Again, this Brisbane Heat batting lineup, they could be without, well, I think they'll definitely be without Matt Renshaw. And they could almost definitely be without uh, Usman Khawaja, Marnus Labuschagne. So there's three new players they've got to find. Josh Brown will be one of them. And Colin Munro as well did an injury, and who knows if he's going to be fit to play given how quick the turnaround time is and the fact that they've locked in a team. So even though we're sort of sitting here thinking like Perth bowlers, let's get them out of the team. This could be a great round to sort of go against that trend and sort of change that around with an Agar or a Berendorf.
Mm, yeah. Now ahead of round eight, what are you doing? What are your trades? Because this could be a very big moving round, despite it looking a bit mundane for Supercoach.
Yeah, no, I think it is a huge moving round. Like, I mean, these ones, it's all going to come down to a great VC and the ability to use your loops as much as possible. I've got a lot of money in the bank. I've got 155K in the bank, given that I basically sort of nuffed down to get Sam Harper last week. So my trades this week are looking at the moment like Aaron Hardy will exit the team. He's really sort of not consistently bowling, and I'm happy to kind of bet against him, albeit it does frighten me given that he's playing at Perth Stadium where he can score so well. I'm getting rid of Jai Richardson. At the moment, I just don't want a piece of him. I think that the other Perth bowlers are doing better, and he's a candidate for a rest. And then the other guy I'm getting rid of just because I can afford to do it is Sam Whiteman, who knows, he could be on the verge of getting dropped and become like a handy loop for me. But as it stands, I can afford to get rid of him, and I don't want him. The guys I'm bringing in at the moment are currently Dan Sams. It was Tom Curran, and I'm not sure if I will stick with either Jack Edwards as sort of like a direct like for like, or maybe go the sort of a Hazine route. My third trade I'm going to keep flexible just based on whether or not I need to loop off my bench. I'll be running Chowdhury and Caleb Jewell as loops from Hobart at the moment on bat bowl. So I could bring in a Hugo Burden, who's a 42k DPP from Brisbane Heat. They've got the round 9 bye, so if he doesn't play in round 8, then he's like the perfect loop candidate. or even a Nathan Lyon. If I just need a bowling loop who has indicated he won't play for the rest of the season, he's only 62.5k. If I don't loop the Hobart Hurricanes, then I'll have to make the difficult choice between either putting Marcus Stoinis on field, who sucks, or potentially getting early on a Sydney Thunder player or even another all rounder. So if that's the case, I might look at Big Bad Bo Webster, who's 190k. He's really expensive, or maybe Dan Lawrence as a cheaper alternative. So just really want to be flexible this round with my trades and sort of really watch those tosses and make my choices accordingly.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, I was just looking at Dan Lawrence myself. I think he's a fair shout. He bowls. He seems to be more reliable to bowl 2 overs or 3 overs or whatever it may be than someone like a Stoinis or a Webster. Because
Mm.
Webster will there'll be grounds where he bowls. There'll be grounds where he bowls 2 or 3 overs, but there'll also be grounds where he doesn't actually bowl. Whilst Dan Lawrence, more often than not, and particularly at Marvel, I think he'll bowl a fair bit. That's something to take into account. And he's an aggressive opening batsman, so there could be some volatile. He could have a volatile score in there. He might not score very well with the bat opening up, but at the same time, it's like hero or zero, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm looking at selling Aaron Hardy as well. I think I'm happy to take a risk on him being a bat only pretty much now. Jai Richardson, I'm pretty much done with him for this season. And then the final player I'm trading out will either be Matt Kuhneman or Cooper Connolly. I lean towards Matt Kuhneman just to fund my trades. And I'm bringing in Hugo Burden as well. I think he's a pretty good enough. I don't think I don't think he'll even get close to their team. Um, I'm also bringing in Stephen Smith. Taking a big risk there. Yeah, look, I figure that if he's going to do well, if I'm pretty sure he's going to do well, then I probably need to be on him. If I'm that confident on him, I should
Mm.
back him in. I won't be captaining him or vice captaining him, but owning him I think will be enough of a pod. I don't think many will go that way, just because of how much it breaks the bank trading in someone at that price. Um,
Yeah.
and then finally, I'm going with David Warner as well. Um, I'm not sure if it's the best, if what I've just done is the best for my team, but I'll probably look at that throughout the day. But ideally, I end up with Smith and Warner in my team, and then Smith can fund me Daniel Sams and well, whoever I choose next round, I suppose. I'd like to bring in Overton, but I think Steve Smith could have an absolutely massive game, and so I'm going to back myself in there.
Yeah, nice. I think you got to trust your gut and these types of things. And I think the beautiful thing is because he already had one hit this season and he got a decent score, he's not going to hurt you too much with a price from a
Yeah,
price perspective if he does have a failure.
yeah, that's right. And oh, gee, I'm really hoping he doesn't have a failure now. All right, well that'll do us for today. Thank you for coming on, Max.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Love the hub. Is one of the places that really sort of got me addicted to SuperCoach a few years back. Love the work that you're doing, mate. So absolutely happy to be here. Anyone who hasn't heard of the playbook or likes a playbook, you can find us on seplaybook.com.au. We've also got the podcast, which run there. But members are really where it's at. They're getting a lot more value. So go to the website, sign up, join us. They're getting ready for NRL season straight after this cricket one's done. So yeah, it's a good place to be a part of, and I'm really happy to see the love and support that Playbook and all the other contributors are getting from the hub as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's been a good season for the hub. Uh, quite a lot of people on the top 100, top 1,000 in the community as well. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we are doing well. Yeah, no, it's been great. Been a great season. Thank you for coming on, and yeah, we'll see you for the final uh, round preview. I guess this would be in I think it's 3 days time, Sunday morning. Yeah. So all the best with your round ahead, and we'll catch you next time.